Question F. So we want to solve this inequality. To do that, we want the x on its own. In other words, make x a subject. So that means, first of all, we'll have to get rid of this plus 1. To do that, we will subtract 1 from both sides. So that means on the left hand side, the plus 1 and the minus 1 cancels out, leaving us with just 5x. And on the right hand side, 11 minus 1 is just 10. And then to get we just copy the sign down. Then to get the x on its own, we have to get rid of this times 5. To do that, we have to divide by 5 on the left. We have to divide by 5 on the right. So now on the left hand side, the times 5 and the divide 5 cancels out, leaving with just x. And on the right hand side, 10 divided by 5 is just 2, and then we just copy the sign down. And that is the answer. X has to be equal to or greater than 2. So if they asked, so this is the answer, and if they asked an additional question, what is the smallest value that x could have? The smallest value that x could have is 2, because x can be equal to 2. But we know from this here that x has to be equal to or greater than 2. Question G. To solve the inequality, we'll have to make x the subject. So we'll have to get rid of this plus 7 first. So we'll take away 7 on the left hand side, then take away 7 on the right hand side, because we take the same number away from both sides. So now on the left hand side, the plus 7 and the minus 7 cancels out, leaving with just 3x on the left. And on the right hand side, we have to do 4 take away 7, which is minus 3. And then we just copy the sign down. Then to get the x on its own, we have to get rid of this times 3. So that means we have to divide by 3 on both sides. So now on the left hand side, the times 3 and the divide 3 cancels out, leaving with just x. And on the right hand side, minus 3 divided by 3 is just minus 1. So now the answer is x has to be greater than minus 1. So in this case, if they asked you what is the smallest possible value for x, then the answer will have to be 0, because x cannot be minus 1. So if they asked you for the integer or the smallest whole number that x could be, the answer would be 0. But we know that x is greater than minus 1. So question H now. To make x the subject, or to solve the equation, we have to get rid of this minus 3 first. So to do that, we want to add 3 to both sides. So on the left hand side, the minus 3 and the plus 3 cancels out, leaving with just 2x. And on the right hand side, 4 add 3 is 7. And then just copy the sign down. Now to get the x on its own, we have to get rid of this times 2. So we divide by 2 on this side, divide by 2 on this side. So now on the left hand side, the times 2 and the divide 2 cancels out, leaving with just x. And on the right hand side, I have to do 7 divided by 2, which is just 3.5. So x has to be greater than or equal to 3.5. Now remember, just a bit of side working on the side here, 7 over 2 is an improper fraction. So in order to turn that into a mixed number, just copy this and this over, and then ask yourself, how many times does a 2 go into 7? 2 goes into 7 3 times. Then 2 times 3 is 6, and the remainder is 1, so the 1 goes on top. So 7.5 is the same as saying 7 over 2 is the same as saying 3.5, which is 3.5. So we now know x has to be equal to or greater than 3.5. But if they asked you what's the smallest possible value or the smallest integer that x could be, the answer would have to be 4. X is equal to 4. But that's the smallest whole number that x could be. So question I. So to solve this, we have to get the x on its own. In order to do that, we have to decide, do we go to the divide 3 first or the plus 1 first? We'll have to get rid of the plus 1 first. So to do that, we have to take away 1 from both sides. So now on the left hand side, the plus 1 and the minus 1 cancels out, leaving with x over 3. And on the right hand side, 6 take away 1 is just 5. And then copy the sign. Now to get rid of this divide 3, we have to times by 3 on the left, we have to times by 3 on the right. So basically times by 3 on both sides. So now the divide 3 and the times 3 cancels out, leaving just x. And on the right hand side, 5 times 3 is 15. So x has to be greater than 15. So this is the answer. This is the solution. So if they asked what is the smallest possible value for x, or what's the integer, the smallest possible integer, the answer would be x is equal to 16, because x can't be 15. X has to be greater than 15. So for question J, to solve this, we're going to get x on its own. So we're going to get rid of this minus 3 first, and then the 4. So to get rid of the minus 3, we have to add 3 to both sides. So when we add 3 to both sides, the minus 3 and the plus 3 cancels out, leaving with just x over 4. And here 3 add 3 is 6. Now we have to get rid of this divide 4. To get rid of the divide 4, we have to times by 4 on both sides. So that means on the left hand side, the divide 4 and the times 4 cancels out, leaving with just x. And on the right hand side, we've got 6 times 4 is 24. So x has to be equal to or less than 24. So this is the answer. X has to be equal to or less than 24. So if they asked us what's the largest possible value of x, well, x can be 24 because there is an equal sign. Well, this is less than or equal to 24. So the largest possible value for x is 24. So x can be any number that's equal to or less than 24. So the largest possible value for x is 24. So question K. So again, we want the x on its own. So do we divide by 2 first or get rid of the plus 3 first? Do we get rid of the divide 2 first or the plus 3 first? In this case, we have to get rid of the plus 3 first. So how do we get rid of plus 3? We have to take away 3 from both sides. So on the left hand side, the plus 3 and the minus 3 cancels out, leaving with just x over 2. And on the right hand side, 9 take away 3 is 6. So 9 take away 3 is 6. And just copy the sign down. Now to get the x on its own, here we have to get rid of the divide by 2 first. So to do that, we have to times by 2 on both sides. So now on the left hand side, the divide to the times 2 cancels out, leaving with just x. On the right hand side, 6 times 2 is 12. So x has to be less than 12. So this is the answer. X has to be less than 12. But if they asked you what was the largest possible whole number or the largest integer that x could be, the answer would be x could be 11. It can't be 12 because it has to be less than 12. It's not equal to 12, it's less than 12. So the largest possible number for x would be 11. So x could be 11. That's the largest number. So x is any number less than 12. It could be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. But the largest number it possibly can be, the largest whole number it could possibly be is 11. And then question L, to make x a subject or to solve it, I have to either get rid of the divide 7 or the minus 1 first. So we have to get rid of the minus 1 first. So to do that, we have to add 1 to both sides. So now on the left hand side, the minus 1 and the plus 1 cancels out, leaving with just x over 7. And on the right hand side, 9 add 1 is 10. Copy the sign down. Now to get the x on its own, I have to get rid of the divided by 7. So that means I have times by 7 here, times by 7 here. So now on the left hand side, the divide 7 times 7 cancels out, leaving just x. On the right hand side, 10 times 7 is 70. So x has to be greater than or equal to 70. So the smallest possible number for x, or the smallest possible whole number, or the smallest integer that x could be is 70. But we know x has to be a number that's equal to or greater than 70. So this is the answer to the question. I'd like you now to try the following 12 questions. In case it's not big enough, I'll make it a bit bigger. So here are the first 6 questions. Pause it and try those questions. And here are the other 6. So the question is, solve the following equations and illustrate the solutions to A, B, C and D on number lines. So try that by yourself, and in the next clip I'll go through the questions one by one.